everyone. Today is Sunday, June 7th, and I'm heading to Chicago for day 2 of the American Writers Festival. Hopefully, I'll get some good food because they're having a little bar party outside of the Harold Washington Library where it's held at. And I'll be attending a few panels. Hopefully, I get to meet some of my favorite authors I enjoy, and get some books signed. So, welcome to this blog.
She's a 2024 Letras Boricuas Fellow, and in January of 2026 began her tenure as the second Poet Laureate of the City of Chicago. Dr. Ewing is a writer, scholar, and cultural organizer from Chicago. She's the award-winning author, most recently, of Original Sins, The Miseducation of Black and Native Children, and the Construction of American Racism, an instant New York Times and USA Today bestseller. Yeah. She's also published the poetry collections Electric Arches and 1919, the nonfiction work Ghosts in the Schoolyard, Racism and School Closings on Chicago's South Side, and a novel for young readers, Maya and the Robot. She has written several projects for Marvel Comics, most notably Ironheart, Black Panther, and Exceptional X-Men, and is currently writing X-Men United. Unfortunately, Maggie Smith had a family emergency and was unable to join us this weekend, but please join me in welcoming Magda and Eve to the stage.
Hello. What's up, y'all? So, it's good to see all of your faces. Oh, I love a spinny chair.
Oh my god.
The spinny chair is the opposite of the
worst idea.
The stool.
Like,
Yeah,
so
we're also both short. So we're each gonna read some poems, and then we'll chat. And
yeah.
then if we have some time, maybe we'll do questions as well.
Fantastic.
I was saying to Maida that it was like unusually challenging for me to prepare for today because I've been writing a lot of prose. which is fine, but it just means that I don't feel like I'm in like close kinship with my poems right now, except for next year. My next book that's coming out is a collection of poems for kids, and they're like really silly, goofy poems. Fun fact is that Shel Silverstein is from Logan Square, which is also
Something said, but
so I'm going to start out. I'll read a couple like really silly poems, and then I'll read some less silly poems. Okay, this is not so silly, but it is a kid's poem. This poem is called Fall. How long does it take a leaf to fall, and what does it feel as it does? Leaf time may not be the same as me time or you time, and leaf thoughts may not be the same as me thoughts or you thoughts. And is a leaf looking up at the sky at a cloud that threatens to rain, a warm and needed rain, or down to its leaf friends waiting below, calling, come to us, come. Or, yeah, it's kind of like giving a scalpel to a doctor. It's like you kind of have...
Use this hacksaw.
Yeah.
Have fun.
All right, I'll read a couple more of these joints. So we're gonna talk about storytelling today, and that means so many different things. But my last book of poetry, 1919, is really like a series of stories. It came out 7 years ago now, which is bananas. And so I'll read a couple of those. The book overall tells the story of the Red Summer and the race riot that rocked Chicago in the year 1919. And it was sparked by a young man named Eugene Williams who was swimming in the lake, in Lake Michigan, and he floated over from what was unofficially considered the black part of the lake into the white part of the lake, which even saying that is ridiculous, right? Because it's water. And we're not sure if, so people on the beach started throwing stones, and we don't know if one of the stones hit him and he drowned, or if he became too afraid to leave the water and he drowned. But he drowned, and that was the kind of inciting event of this riot. So this poem is about that moment. It's called Jump Rope. On Sunday, July 27th, 1919, there was a clash of white people and Negroes at a bathing beach in Chicago, which resulted in the drowning of a Negro boy. Little Eugene, Gene, sweetest I've seen, his mama told him, them white boys mean.
give it a for evil. That's my first time reading your read. So I'm going to read some older poems. I've been reading a lot of new work, unpublished work lately. It's part of a larger body of work I've been creating since last year. But the other day I had something with Mark and Avery and Mama Angela Jackson. They pre-recorded a reading and interview with her. And I decided to read some older work just to kind of revisit it and give people a sense of, what did I say the other day? Of what makes my words dance. I like to make my words dance. So this is Chicago circa 1993 mixtape as Ars Poetica. There is mention of potentially illegal teenage activity in here. If you don't like that, you should go now. Back in the days when I was young, I'm not a kid anymore, but some days I sit and wish I was a kid again. Original mix. We'd roll together. Me and my people always together, tight-knit like wool sweaters with dreams of making it big in our city or making our city big. Squeeze into the back of an 86 light blue hoopty Honda Civic whose bumper we'd sometimes retrieve a block or two behind us still. The kicker box stuffed into the back trunk, bumping Illmatic and Ready to Die made us feel like we was the shit. On our way to see Common live, before he lost the sense, we'd roll northward, kings and queens of Chicago's South Side planet, because anyone who's ever been there knows it's a whole other world. Cut. People drive past us on Lakeshore Drive, witness to the antics of teens who discovered that weed makes weekends with difficult parents easier to stomach. Their scowling brows taking the pants sliding off our asses, oversized t-shirts clinging to our shoulders, staring at us like aliens from outer space, reminding us, you're lucky you get to go out at all. When I was your age, we'd wave off their admonishments, make out in the back seat while friends drove us to the mall. I love those bracelets, by the way. I was looking at those, I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to ask her where she got those.
I used to teach CPS middle school, so one of my favorite middle school jokes to make middle school laugh is like it's skin 30.
Oh, Scott.
Thank you. Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
So I am so grateful to share this stage with you, and I was existing in many times at once as I was listening to you, partially because you are close friends with Avery R. Young, who's the preceding poet laureate and who I had the privilege of interviewing on the stage, to welcome him into his laureate attitude, as it's known. And something that I learned from kind of like your generation, which is like OG poets for my people, my generation, is the poem that you shared about like cruising down Lakeshore Drive, and me, right? Like in a certain way that's like an archetype of how we were raised to write.
Yes.
And that when we teach, for those of us, when we teach young people, for many of us, like the first poem you teach is the Where I'm From poem,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so you teach young people that you become a writer through that, through
Yes.
like excavating. And I'm curious, especially as you are now writing about a present and a past, how you see this era of your life, like through the writerly lens, given that the way you started your career was looking backwards, right? And now you're writing about now and maybe looking forwards. So how do you, 20 years from now, what's the poem that you think you'll be writing about today?
Ooh, dang, Eve. What's the poem I'll be writing about? 20 years, what am I going to be writing about today?
And I didn't even really do math, because 1993, that was more than 20 years, but in my mind, it was always
it's like 33
years ago.
God.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Anyway,
How do you start saying 30 years ago and you're like, wait, I have distinct memories of 30 years ago.
Yeah.
That should not be happening. I think right now I was actually working on something for the Floating Museum with Avery. Some writing about the dignity and what that means for our country currently in this moment. With the 250th coming up, there's a couple things I've been thinking about around that too. So I feel like I'm writing about our country right now. I'm writing a lot about my family because there's this urgency of capturing some of those stories, like before they're gone.
You should get it from your local Chicago Public Library.
Yes. Might be upstairs.
Yeah.
How do you switch back and forth between the two? There's so much of each and the other that's really interesting to me, but I want to hear from you, like what the process is like when you're in different modes.
The question about genre is the question I'm asked the most, and it's the one I'm least equipped to answer. And you could chalk it up to any number of things. I'm a Gemini, it's my season, so it could just be, shout out to all the other chaos goblins in the audience. Like, yes! So, like moving between things, it feels normal to me. I think that a litmus test I often use when I think about human invention is like, if I woke up one day and I was on a deserted island with somehow no memory of the society that came to pass, and maybe I was with 4 or 5 of y'all, like randomly selected. What are the human things that we would recreate, that humans always go back to over and over? And what are the things that like maybe we would forget about? And so like for instance, I think that we would probably always honor and bury our dead, right? We probably would always like give thanks to nature. I don't think I would make genre. Or if I did, I think I would think of things like, these are things that I wrote when I was very hungry, and and that those things go. There's a whole anthology of things I wrote when I was hungry, or like these are things about that are sad. I think that for me, I think about should it be poetry, should it be nonfiction, should it be this or that, only insofar as people ask me all the time to categorize things that way. But actually the way I enter all of this work is through, like, what is the story that I'm trying to tell? And poets say this thing that is like the most annoying thing. Poets are insufferable people, and one of the many annoying things that poets say is poets will say, like, the poem wants to be X, Y. You hear people say this, right? Am I lying?
It's the poem.
Yeah, the poem
What is the
wants to
poem
be this.
asking of you?
Which is really annoying, because what does that mean? But it also, there is a truth to it. And so I often find that when I'm trying to tell, when I feel compelled to tell a story, when I'm called to talk about something, it wants to be one thing or the other.
Poets, playwrights, and storytellers of all kinds to discuss what it means to be a writer, dissect the writing process, and demystify the steps between concept and publication. Host Nikesha Elise Williams joins us for a special live recording episode of her podcast with guests Jabari Asim, Deborah D. Douglas, and Renee O'Neill. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
What's good, American Writers Festival?
There's actually a book inside of you that you wanted to like dedicate extended time to. Start with Deborah.
Okay, I haven't really done a great job of listening to that voice. I feel like I have so many more books in me, and I just hope that I have enough time to get it all out. But I was presented with an opportunity to submit a proposal for my book, the U.S. Civil Rights Trail. It's the first ever travel guide to follow the official Civil Rights Trail in the South. It came out 5 years ago. This is a new edition that just came out this year. I was presented with the opportunity, and because of my body of work, because I have built many kinds of publications, so I revel in the process of just the publishing process. At the time, I was a visiting professor in Indiana, but also I was the founding managing editor of a publication called MLK50, Justice Through Journalism, which focuses on poverty, power, and policy in Memphis. I have done lobbying work with a local congressman. I've worked with Rainbow Push. So just based on my body of work, I felt like I was the right person to write this book. And I thought I also could do some narrative repair in the course of writing this book.
Contextualizing certain arguments, reframing the lens and perspective of history that is often taught, and giving it a point of view from that of people who are systemically disenfranchised and often are not considered the victors, so to them doesn't go the pen.
Yeah, well, there are a few things about this book. I spent a year wooing the editor in the process of turning in the proposal and waiting to hear if I actually won the contract.
You had to woo the editor, say more?
I didn't have to. I decided to woo the editor in my campaign to persuade them that I was the very best and the only person fit to write this particular book. And so I made it a point to develop a relationship with her, and just to email or call her up every once in a while, maybe riff off the news, bring up topics, and say I was thinking about this thing in this way for that reason.
Of something Jabari talked about, and I adopted for my own, which is narrative combat, right? And these dueling ideas. And so my most recent book, Bib Country, Unearthing My Family Secrets of Land, Legacy, and Lettuce. It's got me so traumatized, I gotta read the subtitle. But that started as a story I wrote for ESPN The Undefeated, which was a platform devoted to race, sports, and culture. I had not been a sports reporter at the Washington Post. I was at the Washington Post for 24 years, and I left the columnist, but I was not a sports reporter, but I did race and culture, and it was a story about finding out through Facebook that my family, my grandmother was Susie Bibb, that they were descendants of enslavement, and that the enslavers had a wealth that was foundational to America, right? While my grandmother grew up hungry. And so I could not let that story go.
1852, among a group of enslaved people. And one of the things that I was interested in was filling in the gaps in the historical narrative. And I've always kind of been obsessed with Jefferson's Notes on the State of Virginia, which was the definitive text about Black people, supposedly, for about 100 years. And in that, in those notes, he writes that Black people are incapable of genuine romantic love, we are motivated solely by animal attraction, animal instincts, right? And we all know that that is a lie, right? But I wanted to tell a story that kind of, actively engaged with that particular lie. So I wanted to write a story about how did love sustain itself amid conditions in which love was actually forbidden.
Yes and no.
Okay.
It's my 8th book, my
Okay.
first big 5
Gotcha.
traditionally
Right.
published
Oh,
book.
I see, okay. For those of us who aren't super familiar with it, can you give us a brief synopsis
Right.
of what it's about and what motivated you to write this particular book in the first place? You can ask her some questions.
Okay, The Seven Daughters of Dupree is the historical fiction novel about the secrets kept between mothers and daughters over the course of 7 generations, and is told backwards in time from 1995 to 1860. The novel is set in 1995 on the south side of Chicago, which is where I'm from. It starts with 14-year-old Tatiana, who it's her birthday, but before she can go out and celebrate with her mother and her best friend, she has to go down in the basement where her mother runs a hair salon, and there's a client on a Sunday morning. That client is her grandmother, because her grandmother, Mimi, comes over every Sunday morning before what?
Church.
There we go, to get her hair done. And you would think that in this basement with these 3 generations that Mimi, her real name is Gladys and Nadia, the mother, would be giving Tatiana all of these pearls of wisdom and encouraging her, and that's not happening because they are keeping a secret from her. She wants to know the identity of her father, and Nadia and Gladys refuse to tell her. And so that is the very first secret in the line of Dupree women that goes all the way back to 1860 in the fictional town of Land's End, Alabama, where the first in their line lived. But they don't know anything about this ancestor. They don't know her name or where she was from. They only know the legend of how she died. And the legend is the very first line of the book, not a spoiler, and it says they cut off her head because she ran. I know, very gruesome. And so, with that line, we're gonna deal with enslavement and Reconstruction and Jim Crow, and they get to Chicago, so we're gonna deal with the Great Migration, and we're gonna bring it all the way back into the present day at the very end.
So it has a real epic sweep, I like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I want to commend you on getting Bonnie Turpin to be your narrator for the audiobook version. That is a real sign of quality. But you talked about the vulnerability of writing this book over multiple generations. So can you tell us a little bit about bringing vulnerability to the page and grappling with it and making it through it, if you feel like you did?
I'm sure I did. I call this book a really pretty coping mechanism. I started the book 7 days before my daughter was born. Don't recommend, very ghetto. And in the midst of writing the book, my marriage fell apart and I'm now divorced. And so the page has always been a safe place for me to play, for me to explore. There are often times that I write something before I will ever say it out loud. And so in everything that was happening in my life at the time, I could just do it. I just had to meet the deadline, do the things, get through, parent, write. I was freelancing at the time, whatever it was. And so writing the novel, the emotions that I was feeling that I was not allowing myself to express in my day-to-day life came out on the page. And so I think that's the level of vulnerability people will see when they meet each of the daughters and read each of their stories and think about the secrets that are being kept between them and whether or not it's for protection or if they're just trying to, or if it's harmful, things like that.
Haas, and I'm the Assistant Director of Education at the American Writers Museum, and I'm so excited to introduce our next writers who are here to talk about the art of the novel. Jane Hamilton grew up in Oak Park and has written 8 critically acclaimed novels. Sahar Mustafah is an award-winning Palestinian-American author of The Slightest Screen, The Beauty of Your Face, and Code of the West. Her recent fiction is featured in Stories from the Center of the World, New Middle East Fiction, The View from Gaza, published in the Massachusetts Review, and Redline Chicago Horror Stories. They'll be interviewed today by Ariane Nettles, a professor, culture reporter, and audio aficionado who serves as the Garcia Reeves Eminent Scholar Chair and instructor for digital journalism at Florida A&M University. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Hello, and thank you for hanging out with us on this beautiful Sunday. We are really honored to be here today with these amazing novelists who are, as you can hear from their bios, extremely experienced. So today the title of our session is New Novels because they each have a new novel that we are really excited to talk about today. So we'll be talking about those novels, but we'll also be talking about craft, the process, and just things for our readers, as well as maybe some people who might be interested in being novelists as well. Yes, if you could tell us just a little bit about the book, and then go into our passage. Okay.
Thanks everyone in the audience today. I really appreciate it. I do want to acknowledge that we are approaching 1,000 days of the genocide, and I raise that because I very deeply appreciate my positionality and my place of privilege. So I appreciate being here, and this year also marks 78 years since the Nakba, which was the catastrophe when the state of Israel expelled 750,000 Palestinians. So I'm going to give a scene from when my main character, Sundus, who was 10 years old in 1948, is expected to gather as many belongings as possible because her family has decided that they were going to leave until the quote war was over, not realizing that they would not be able to come back. And so Sundus is one of three main characters in this novel, The Slightest Green. She is the matriarch. I think of her, we were talking about mothering, and just how important that role is, and what it looks like under occupation. And her son, Hafiz, is the second character, and he's decided to leave Palestine to basically live free in the United States in Chicago, falls in love with an American-born Palestinian, and has a daughter named Intisar, who is the third character. We start the book with Sundus. She is outside her son's bedroom door. He makes a harrowing decision to return to Palestine during the first uprising, the first Intifada, and is imprisoned after being captured during a mission, and basically thrown into prison for life. But he is released at one point. So Intisar is called back, his daughter, because he's dying. And so she is going to attempt to make it in time, very reluctantly, because she feels incredibly abandoned. On some level understands this decision of her father to return to homeland, but where does this leave her, without a father growing up whom she absolutely adored. So again, this is Sundus, who also has to get reacquainted with her granddaughter, who very quickly is also called back to help Sundus hold on to her property, to her land. So a lot of family dynamics, chaos going on, but this is Sundus, the grandmother, 1948. She glances around her room. Her mother did not say anything about her toys. Sundus grabs her favorite doll, a little girl with yellow bobbed hair and eyes with lids that open and close when Sundus tilts her. She goes to her wardrobe and rifles through dresses she wears on holiday and for school pageants. She pulls a forest green one from a hanger, presses the soft velvet fabric against her face. The collar and cuffs are white lace, and pearl buttons run down the back of the dress. I think what is really challenging for Intisar, the granddaughter, is she doesn't feel strong roots, a strong attraction to Palestine. It is very complicated because of her father leaving her, so she's just sort of grappling with these questions of homeland and this relationship with her grandmother isn't even a relationship, and what are her obligations? So it really is grandmother and granddaughter kind of finding each other again, because they had met each other when Sahar was very young. So this is a book, and it's a journey of them becoming reacquainted and sort of investing in each other.
So that was the American Writers Festival. I had a great time, and I plan on going again next year. So this was the vlog, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye.